Hi, everyone. Mark DeJesus here. Hope you're having a great day. And I am excited about sharing this subject with you because it has to do with the subject of blame. I've been doing a series on shame and helping people to break free from the bondage of shame. It is such an important thing to realize and understand. You're going to have to, if you want to live more healed, free, and transformed from the inside out, experience life in your heart, experience emotional health, mental health, relational health, you're going to have to understand how shame works, be aware of it in your life, and begin to break off the shackles of it. And one of the key signs that shame is in the midst is that blaming goes on. If there's a lot of blaming in the culture, if there's a lot of blaming in an organization, if there's a lot of blaming in the family, if there's a lot of blaming in relationships, then shame is a major driving force. And when that's taking place, we can know there's not going to be productive healing that's going to take place. Now, it's very challenging because we experience a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and quite frankly, we're around a lot of people that are unsafe. And we're wounded by people that don't want to take responsibility, right? So you're left with a lot of pain and emotional things and residue that you're struggling through, working through, trying to figure out, trying to work through. And in that emptiness, vulnerability, in that woundedness and isolation, the temptation could come up to then point the finger and blame. It's a very easy thing to come into our lives. It's a very easy thing to come into agreement with. But what I want to say up front is when there's a lot of blaming going on, it is a sign there's a lot of brokenness that needs to be grieved. That's what we first need to understand. When a lot of blaming, it's your fault, it's this, it's you, a lot of finger pointing going on. It's a sign at the root system, healing needs to happen. And it's not happening productively. So anytime you see this, again, in your relationships, in your family, in an organization, in a business, in a church, in culture, when that finger pointing is happening, people are not healing properly. So number one, it's a sign of unprocessed, unhealed, ungrieved pain and brokenness. And two, it's a sign of shame-based living. Shame is cloaking itself around our hearts in some area that needs to be set free. And what I want to propose to you is that as you get free of a blaming mentality, you can get more free of shame. And you'll be able to see yourself and others through a greater sense of love, grace, mercy, and compassion. Because that's how we're healed. And many times it starts with how you see yourself, because we see others through shame because of what we cultivate in our inner perspective of ourselves and how we deal with our inner life. And that comes out in how we see others. So I want to release you from this blame game because it can be a survival mechanism. And at many times it can feel right? Because you feel justified. You feel a sense of they are wrong and it's their fault. They did this, but it's a trap because it will actually deter you from healing, and it'll actually leave you in a more toxic state than when you started. But let's talk about blame. What is it? Well, from a basic definition, it's placing the weight of fault on another person. And this is what happens in our pain, especially if we don't know how to heal through things properly. We look for someone. Secondly, is to place responsibility. So we got the weight of fault. Whose fault is it? And then who's responsible, right? Some people are heavy blamers on themselves. They shame themselves with blame all the time. It's my fault. It's my fault. And they never heal. They never receive grace. They never forgive themselves. Now, I took this to the next level with the next two. What is blame? The third one I want to propose to you is it is to give a reason. We're focusing on that word. A reason for your current problem and pain. Your current predicament. I need a reason. What's going on? Why? Why, God? Why me? Why? Oh, here's a reason. And we blame. Okay? Another thing it does is it fills, because we have in our pain, we have a need for explanation. And as the dust settles and we're walking out of our traumas and dramas and struggles, we need an explanation. And for many things in our life, there isn't this perfect explanation. But our minds need a reason. We demand a reason. And so blame helps fill in the blank. It's deadly, but it proposes filling in the blank between what happened and reason and an explanation. What happens with shame is shame fuels the blame. And what happens is this now envelops your story. It envelops the story of where you are, why you are, and it becomes something you rehearse, something you talk through, something you practice. Now it becomes a part of your perspective. Okay? And so when we shame on others and we blame, who do we blame? Well, we often blame our circumstances. I am where I'm at. You know what? Because of this. Because I don't have any help. I don't have any of my family that I grew up with. Because of the country I live in. Because of my history. We look for something to give ourselves an explanation and a reason for why we are where we are. The problem is it's very disempowering because it can leave us stuck. We blame others. That's one of the biggest targets. We blame a person. We put the full weight, full responsibility. I am where I am because of what you did. We start pointing the finger. Now, it's very, very common for Christians to be tempted, or even non-Christians, really, to blame God. It's a very, very common problem. It's a very common predicament that we fall into. We blame God. Why do we blame God? Why do we go, God, where are you? Where are you? What happened? What did you do? Why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you do this? God, what are you doing? Why do we do that? Number one, because we're in pain. We're in a place of pain, heartache, and brokenness. Number two, shame has come into our hearts. The reason that we blame God is because there is shame on ourselves. This is what happened to Adam. Sin enters in, shame comes right along with it. And Adam says, God, it's the woman you gave me. So from the beginning, we have been tempted to accuse God. It's his fault. What's interesting is in coaching work with people, when we break through self-shame, their image of God begins to clear up. Shame is so infectious. It's so contagious. It's so toxic that when you look out, you blame others. When you look up, you blame. And then what's the last thing is you blame yourself. Because really, shame fuels blame. And at the end of it, it comes out of how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself. And I find when you take the shame off of yourself, it allows you to experience the healing and the grieving and to face your pain. It's about that. You need healing. You need grieving. You need to process through these things. And the blame is the sign that that's taking place. Now, why do we blame? There's just a few reasons here. I've given you some already, but let me go into a few more. For many of us, it's a quick pathway. It's like kind of a quick fix to feed our need for justice. And God says, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Justice is in his hands. But we often want to take matters of justice into our own hands, and blaming can feel like a quick route to getting that. But it doesn't satisfy the needs of the heart. Now, I think we need to be people who walk justly with our God. We need to be just in how we handle each other. But when unjust things are going on, blame gets put in, but the matters of the heart never get addressed. Issues never get healed. There's never true transformation. You could blame your family. You want justice, blame a bunch of things. But it doesn't bring resolution in your life. Another reason that we blame is our fears rush in. You know, when we first see ourselves in a vulnerable position, exposed with a place of pain or vulnerability, fear comes in and creates a rushed reaction. Right? We blame real quick. That becomes our instinctive response that God needs to heal. For example, many times parents, when they see their kids acting in a way that is wrong or bad behavior, a fear comes in with shame, and it really does this. How things look is making me look bad. It's shaming me. I feel very uncomfortable. So what happens? You snap at your kids and go, "What are you doing? What were you thinking? What is wrong with you?" Now, those kind of statements are shame statements. We're putting shame on someone. What is wrong with you? What were you thinking? What's the matter with you? What do you think you're doing? Right? It just creates this explosion of fear and shame upon someone. And for the children, it conditions them to hide, to keep hiding. Now, in that situation, what's fueling the parent's response? Well, a situation that created anxiety or stress, but there was shame attached to it. I look bad right now. So it doesn't allow the parent to calm down and deal with the real issue at hand of what's going on with their kid, what might be happening, and relationally work through. It's a snap reaction, and many families are built on this. Shame on you. What's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? Why can't you do things better? Why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you? Beware of how you talk. What's wrong with you? Be aware of how you talk to people, especially in those vulnerable moments of mistakes. Be aware of that. That shame does not become a driving force, because it will infect others. It will become a contagious work, and people will hide more. You'll hide and others hide. Now, why do we blame? Well, it gives us a distraction. It distracts me from my own issues and what I need to work through. Now I'm focused on you. And I'm going to list out, that's actually one of the reasons why shame is so toxic, and we need to rid ourselves of it. Remove it from your toolbox. Remove it from your toolkit as a way. Recognize it, see it, remove it, because it distracts you from dealing with your own pain. And we blame because we see ourselves through shame. It's a reflection of how you see yourself. Now, I'm going to give you some important reasons as to why blame is unhealthy and dangerous. I'm going to give you a few. I could give you more, but these are just some foundational ones to get you thinking. And I want to encourage you in your family, in your church, in your community, in your relationships. Have a conversation that says we're going to be set free from shame. We're not going to look to blame. We're not going to use that as a primary mechanism for how we deal with problems. Because what I want to share with you is that I believe that blame is never really helpful and fruitful. And I'll tell you why. Number one is it empowers a toxic, bitter root of resentment. It gives bitterness a chance to spring up. And the Bible says, beware lest any root of bitterness spring up by which many are defiled. It's the enemy's way of defiling people and spreading the toxic contagion of bitterness. If we want to talk about pandemics, bitterness is one of them. Spreading, what's resentment? Resentment is really a keeping track or memory of, or recording of, a record of that which is wrong, and holding that against someone. Meanwhile, you're drinking the poison. The poison's in you while you look at someone else through resentment. And blame directs all of your attention outward on someone, something, and it just fuels bitterness. You're looking at that person, and how dare they, all this wrong that they did. Meanwhile, you're sinking down. You're not healing. You're not growing. You think you are. Oh, I'm moving forward. But that hatred's fueling. The bitterness is fueling. The vengeance is fueling. The resentment's fueling in your heart. The second thing is that you jump into the ring with the accuser. It brings you into agreement with accusation. And this is Satan's primary mechanism against people. He's especially an accuser against the people of God. If he can use you as an instrument of accusation, then he is fulfilling his goal. And he's using you to divide relationships, to sow discord, to erode the unity of groups, to defile people's hearts, to keep promoting negativity, to wear people out, and to defile the relational health of people. You never want to come into the ring, into the boxing ring, in alignment with the accuser, because he will punch you, and knock you out. This is very, very important to understand, is that as we accuse others, we are allowing those daggers to infect our own hearts. So I don't want to be in agreement with accusation. I don't want to live as an accuser. I don't want to come into alignment with Satan's work, because that's what he does. He's his title is the accuser of the brethren. And I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of reconciliation, healing, restoration. Number 3, blame, and this is the one that's oftentimes hardest for people to hear, is that blame reinforces victim thinking. Anytime you are chronically involved in blaming, it's going to reinforce a victim thinking, because when you place the burden, responsibility, and focus onto someone else, it takes power away from you, because now you're putting the basis of your healing and freedom on someone else. I can only be free if this person will take blame and take responsibility. Now you got your power given over. You start to come into agreement with powerlessness. It takes power away from you to make choices and walk into freedom. Now, stuff has happened to us. I'm not saying to anyone, deny that something happened. What happened to you could certainly hurtful, wrong, yes. But now what are you going to do? Now what are you going to do? To begin to heal, to begin to allow God to bring transformation into your life. Blame will leave you as a powerless victim. Now, your father may have been a terrible father, mother been a terrible mother, or maybe terrible is too strong of a word. He had some issues and things. And you're tempted to blame, but the blame isn't going to heal you. It's going to put a focus on the other person needing to be better for you, or needing for them to get something right so you can feel better, so that you get the due justice, or you'll feel peace. But it never satisfies. Which leads me into the 4th one, which is it can make you codependent. Why will it make you codependent? Because codependency says, I need for you to be better so I can be better. And so in your relationships, it says, I need this other person to be better. So in your blame, you're like, take responsibility for this, change, heal, repent, turn, so I can be better. And that's never going to make you better. It's never going to make you heal. One of the biggest things that blame does that I want to warn you of is it's a distractor. We have blame in our culture. We have blame in our nations. We have blame in our families, blame in our churches, and it distracts you from the healing work that you need. Chronic blame is a major sign someone's not healing well. Blame keeps you from seeing your pain, from facing yourself in your pain. It takes your eyes off of what you need and what you need to work through, and it distracts you. Now you're all focused on another person. And so, yes, people need to take responsibility, but you can't force someone else to take responsibility. Now, if the conversation comes up, it says, it's important to take responsibility, but they have to make a decision. And many times people don't take the decision to take responsibility. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do then? You can only take responsibility for your decisions, for your actions, and for things that you've done or not done. That's all we can do. Blame puts the focus on someone else. And blame and shame work together. They're very deeply connected. Number 6, I'll say this again, is blame will distract you from the healing work that you need. It's going to distract you from the healing work you need. And I find that the last thing that I want to say is that shame, and listen to me as I give you this last thought. Shame will make you an unsafe person. Blame. Blame will make you an unsafe person. Because if that's a triggered response and it keeps getting cultivated over and over again, you'll be unsafe to yourself. You'll be unsafe to others. If you're a blamer, I don't know that we're going to be able to be in close relationship. Because the moment something gets uncomfortable or something happens, you won't be quick to listen or quick to forgive. You'll be quick to blame. And it's one of the greatest signs someone's not safe, is they become quick to blame, because then they develop a radar to look for something, because they're not used to healing and dealing with issues in their life. They've not been equipped. They've not been helped. So they don't know how to process healing through things well. In families, many people look at their parents and try to convince them. And then their parents don't take responsibility for things that they maybe should. But that blame finger is held. That blame finger is held, and it's distracting you. And it will make you unsafe to yourself in your own world. And what I'm wanting to encourage in people is teaching you how to be safe in yourself. Stop living in shame towards yourself, but also creating safe environments to the people that are in your circle, that interact with you, that you influence, is to learn to create that safe environment. Part of it is getting that blaming thing out, so that instead, when the opportunity arises, we create invitations. Let's heal together. Let's not shame and blame each other. Let's heal together. And some people will say yes. Some people will say no. And we have to be able to move on in our journey, but we don't have to carry toxicity with us. I pray that this resource is a blessing to your life. If it is, go to markdejesus.com, click on the donate button, and send a one-time donation or become a monthly regular supporter. Get access to our materials courses, and that helps support what we do. And I look forward to being a further blessing to your life and to those you love. God bless you.